company, taking care of the initial quote form that comes through to highlight a bunch of information for you folks and kind of streamline what components you're looking for, whether it's a specific type of panel or consumption monitoring, EV charging, battery backup, whatever the case may be. It's extremely helpful for me to kind of streamline the initial proposal process, to crank out those proposals, to get initial information in front of you folks, and then meet with you folks one-on-one to kind of dial in exactly what you're looking for, make sure we have you guys set up correctly. So with the initial proposal, I typically send it out to you with another lengthy email. I do apologize for the amount of information, but being the only salesman for the company, the more information I have in front of you guys, the better, to help streamline questions as what we're doing here tonight as well, with a Q&A session to follow up to get everybody on the same page, highlight quite a bit of information for you guys. So after the initial proposal, I typically give you a couple days to review everything. Please feel free to respond with an email, let me know. Typically we start off at about 100% offset as a starting point, but everybody is electrifying their home as far as additional heat pumps, EV chargers, everything like that. And depending on which jurisdiction you guys reside in, we have some leniency with how we size the array. It's up to 200% in Xcel territory or 120% in United. So we've got quite a bit of wiggle room to dial everything in and meet your needs essentially. After the initial proposal goes out, I will schedule a follow-up site visit with you to kind of streamline that process as well. I will do an initial sales site visit with you, get in front of you folks and walk the property with you. We are having several team members help out, trying to streamline that process for a technical site visit as well. There, we will need access to all attic access points, all breaker panels, so we can take as many pictures and measurements for our team, make sure everything's good to go. We pride ourselves to do the engineering at the forefront of the project, make sure everything's dialed in for you so we have a solidified proposal, scope of work, and then we move forward to a contract after that. There's a lot of moving parts here and everything. We want to account for as much technical information as we possibly can, so there's no hidden surprises later on down the road. Make sure we're all on the same page before we proceed to the next step, basically. So it's typically about 30 to 45 minutes for a initial sales visit, and then essentially another 30 minutes for a technical site visit beyond that as well. You've got our team members here to help walk the property with you guys and help answer those technical questions for you, really dial everything in and make sure we're all set before we proceed. After we do finalize the scope of work, we will send out an initial contract for you folks. We can work through that together, make sure everything lines up correctly, and then once the contract has been signed, we move you into the project queue. I will upload all pictures, measurements, information specifically for your project and relay that onto our team. The next step is to begin the permitting process. We do have a permit package that is an extremely detailed package, which will highlight everything from single line diagrams, racking materials, panels that we're installing, everything like that, batteries, EVs, whatever the case may be. We do ask for some patience as that is a very detailed document, and we are trying to pump out all these documents, get you guys in the project queue as a group to kind of streamline you through Broomfield's building department, as well as Xcel and United as well. With the permitting process, it varies a little bit by jurisdiction. The building department, for the structural aspect of it, is typically a pretty quick process, and then a little bit slightly delayed with the utility company. There's a little bit of back and forth that we work with those folks, but we take care of all permitting and engineering in-house. There are some documents that we will reach out to you guys for signature, but we do have team members to help walk you through that process, let you know what you're signing, why you're signing it, everything like that. Along those lines, with the permitting and engineering taking place in-house, we also pride ourselves on having all electrical team members, all installation team members in-house as well. So we do not subcontract for any portion of the work. It's only Sandbox that's touching your project from start to finish, essentially. Aoife will give you updates. She's here to help assist throughout the entire process. If you have any questions about where your project stands, she can help give you project updates on that. And then essentially once permits and interconnection documents have been approved, we will slide you guys forward as quickly as we can. Essentially once we have permits approved, materials, and an opening in our schedule, we'll shift you guys forward and get these projects installed for you as quickly as we can. After the rooftop installation, depending on size, that's typically a couple days. And then the electrical team will follow up as quickly as possible to tie in their portion of the project. Permitting documentation, I'm sure you guys have seen with each municipality, that's typically the longest portion of the entire project. But when we're physically on site, it's usually a very quick turnaround. But Aoife will coordinate with you guys, make sure everything's convenient for you guys. Our main goal here is to set your expectations, answer your questions, make sure everybody's informed on what the next steps are, and keep sliding you through this entire process as quickly as we can. After the electrical tie-in takes place, we will call it a building department inspection. That's the next step in the process. Broomfield has been very responsive to us in the past. They're very quick turnaround, so typically a couple days after the electrical tie-in, and then we shift over. Once Broomfield approves that portion, they will give it up to the respective utility to start their process, where they will come and ultimately give you permission to operate as the final step in the entire process to physically turn the system on and start producing energy for you guys. With our timeline here, depending on jurisdiction, we're looking at roughly 5 to 6 months for the general aspect. But we can definitely discuss the timeline in much more detail with you folks, specifically for your exact area. Make sure everything's dialed in there for you as well. We do have a couple different financing options as well. So Ian, if you want to get a little breakdown on financing options too, we can go there.
So there are a couple of different options. Of course, you can always buy cash. We're happy to facilitate that. But if you don't want to put all the money up front, there are options. Specifically, what most people go for is the state of Colorado has a renewed energy loan program. If you want a link later, we're happy to send you a link that references that. They operate this loan through 3 different local credit unions to Colorado. And they have various terms and rates, which depends on credit. And it's an easy application process through one of the 3 credit unions. But it's an excellent package for those folks that are looking to get the best value and own their system long-term and pay it off via monthly payments for whatever term length you're most comfortable with. So it's processed through the state. We're happy to facilitate that process as well. You can do partial loan payments. So if you have cash for 50% of the project, 45% of the project, they will finance any portion all the way up to 100%. The Renew Loan Program also allows for battery storage, electric vehicle chargers, or any other energy efficiency upgrade. So that's also a great benefit for that loan program. The other option that we offer is a 12-3 financing package through Concert Financing. And the 12-3 stands for 12 months, no payments. So the first 12 months you sign up, you get you don't have to pay anything towards the loan. And then it amortizes over 3 years instantly. And so it updates the interest rate each time you make payments towards that loan. There is origination fee with that loan, but the interest rates vary from as low as 2.99% fixed over a 25-year term length. And typically we steer people towards that loan if you're looking for just a monthly loan payment to meet your Xcel bill or your utility bill every month. Or if you're interested in paying off the loan within that 12-month period, there's no penalty fee. So those are kind of the different options, and we're happy to go through those in detail with each proposal and each offer, but something to consider in terms of what your finance goals are. There's a lot of different ways to get to solar, and we're happy to create those avenues for you all as you just start to figure out, what meets your options the best. We also have a sign-up sheet going around that we'll pass out. Please sign your name, and we'll be sure to get in contact with you and give you further information after this. Justin, is there anything else regarding financing that you would like to cool.
Along those lines, there's just a couple of financing options. We do have a couple of different types of equipment that we can offer as well. I'm sure you guys have seen the offer details that came directly through the Solar United Nightmares Co-op information. So we have somewhat of a more cost-effective option for the REC NP panels. We have an American-made 400-watt sill-fed panel as well. And then our bread and butter, what we've been installing for the last couple of years here, the Alpha Series 400-watt panel as well. Like I said, we've been installing those for a couple of years. We've never heard one negative remark about those, and we would highly recommend those options for you guys as well. We do have an option for central inverters, but highly recommend the in-phase microinverters, which is typically much more beneficial for you from a technical point of view for rooftop solar installation. Like I said, we can meet with each individual customer, discuss that free quote form that you guys fill out, what your interests are, what you're trying to accomplish for each project, and guide you in the right direction to meet your needs there. After the installation, we've got Sam over here that can help facilitate any technical questions for our workmanship warranty. We can provide documentation for you guys for technical specs on equipment that's installed, everything like that. I'll hand it off to Sam right now to kind of highlight on some details for our workmanship warranty, what's included there for you.
I'm not going to get too deep into it. We have a 10-year workmanship warranty of our own, but the big thing or the big long-term benefit from warranty is from the manufacturers. So the microinverters that he mentioned come with a factory warranty of 25 years, and then I believe it's 20 on the RC.
We actually, you guys offer the Pro Trust warranty, which is 25 years power performance.
Okay, so that's a performance warranty. So there's a specified level of production out of these that is guaranteed by the manufacturer, and so that's not even relying on our outfit, although we are the ones supporting. You could, so God forbid something horrible happened and you weren't able to get a hold of us, you can rely on these manufacturers.
It's a little hard to hear. Can you put it closer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Public speaking was definitely not part of my job description. I am a wrench turner. But yeah, so we are warranting our own work for the tin. So that's the job we did putting them up and wiring and all that stuff. And then your major components, the things that you would in some other world, you would have to worry about the cost of replacing these expensive components, but you are protected by these long manufacturer warranties, which is an excellent benefit in my view. Something new in this industry. I started, I guess, about 12 years ago. We were in much less of a good situation in terms of warranty. So we were well protected on that. And if you have any further questions, talk to me face to face. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Hail.
Hail? These things are rated against hail. I don't think we've ever had even our Colorado hail destroy one of these guys.
I mean, it's out there. As my experience, everyone here's been doing this for a long time. They hold up way better than your standard shingles.
Yeah,
If you throw 50, the brick this size at it, it's probably going to break. Fingers crossed. We've had really good luck with hail so far.
Yeah, it's an extreme fluke thing.
I think that goes into an Ian can correct me if I'm wrong, into like homeowners type of claim, like a standard roof claim. In that scenario, if you do have hail damage, panels are okay, but your roof took a beating, that'd be something you can call us to, and we handle basically taking off the system that gets re-roofed. We put the system back out.
So we test our modules, and we have fun testing for hail actually, and then and breaking them. But they're tested for just a little bit larger than a golf ball size hail, which is a rare hail event here in Colorado, but will it actually happen a few years ago. And my rear windshield of my car was smashed out by hail. But we have one of, if not the lowest warranty claims rate in the industry. We're known for our very strong modules. And the only time I've ever seen a module get damaged from hail was in a superstorm in Texas. But we have this exceptional warranty, so you would just work with us and our warranty team to get a replacement module.
All right, who's next?
Question. Where are the solar panels made?
It was the Silfab is the all-American option, and then,
Yeah, so REC, we manufacture our residential modules in Singapore. We're looking at US manufacturing, which will take us about 12 to 18 months to be online with that. Originally, we manufactured in Norway, and we moved to Singapore because it's a really progressive country, and we wanted to go global. We have a state-of-the-art, powered by AI manufacturing facility. I visited it. We produce about 2 gigawatts of residential panels, and most of this will be United States.
anybody else on
Yeah, I recently read about in California, they have a lot of older systems that they're having difficulty disposing of now. What is the policy for once a solar panel is beyond its life, disposing of panels, and is there any issues with?
Yeah, so I've been in solar since 2008, and it's been really wonderful to see the evolution of the industry. I think we're in our teen years maybe, and not years, but more states are becoming more progressive and responsive to the need for solar panel recycling as we're hitting that first wave of retired systems. Panels back then, the warranty, if there was one, was 8 years or 10 years. And now, like with REC, for example, we warranty our panels for 25 years. And these panels actually work at 25 years of age, almost as well as they do on day one. So we have a 92% power output, which means they're producing at 92% of 100% at year 25. There is a really great organization, like a US organization called solarrecycles.org. I recommend if you're curious about this to visit solarrecycles.org, and you can learn about the different options for recycling modules in the United States. Washington State is leading the charge, or has been leading the charge. There's a process for basically peeling away the layers of the onion that make a solar panel, recycling the components, the aluminum, the glass, the silicon, et cetera. But one thing to keep in mind is it's not just about recycling now for these kinds of modules, it's about making them last for a really long time, making them strong enough to withstand snow and wind and hail. So you really want to look at the quality of the modules you're putting on your roof when you're going solar, especially when they're producing as much power as they do.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. The useful life does not end at that 25-year warranty. You can go on with a slight degradation over something like a 40-year useful life on a lot of times.
So if you sell your house, do all the warranties transfer?
The warranty on our modules do.
And the in-phase microinverters do. If you get into any other oddball components, we'll have to check specifically. But the major components, absolutely.
And your installation is covered too?
Oh, within the 10-year workmanship warranty, RA warranty, yes, it does.
And for ours, we, on top of what they have baked into as a contractor, we offer a 25-year labor warranty on the modules as well. So if you sell your house and the person who inherited your system, right? The warranty on the panels transfers, they would just call me or my team, and we would contact Sandbox or whoever was in our dealer network and have someone come out and it will be covered under the labor warranty.
Do you know whether or not when you sell your house, if the solar that's on there has to be paid off before you can sell your house?
That's financing.
Because I know
That's a great question.
I'm sure it's above your pay grade. Not my pay grade.
So in that aspect, as we do cash projects, or if we do a financing option as well, we've heard of customers in the past that have evaluated the value of the system on your home right there. We've had customers loop that into the asking costs when you sell the home and kind of wash your hands clean as the new homeowner takes over ownership. Or there are ways to transfer loans. You do have to work that into your selling contract as well and make sure both parties are on the same page for taking over the loan with the lender. But there are ways to facilitate that and make that an easy transition for you folks as well.
Okay, so the loan that's offered by the state of Colorado would allow for someone to start to take over that loan. That's part of what's written in the contract for that loan.
Essentially, yes. We can get you in touch with representatives from the Renew Loan directly. They can give you much more information on that, but yes, it should be somewhat of an easy transition to pass along to the new homeowner taking over.
Okay, so one way or another though, the contract has to be paid either by transferring the loan or, them paying for it outright as part of the contract with the realtor.
Correct. Correct. Yep. We do not do any leasing or PPA systems. We only do loan options as well as cash deals. Essentially, you're putting a large system on your home. We want you guys to reap the benefits of that and own the system rather than a third party owning equipment on your house. Absolutely.
And with those leases and PPAs, that's probably what you're thinking of as the trouble spot for those transfers. Those are notorious problems.
Yes, it gets pretty tricky when trying to transfer ownership with a lease or PPA. We do not offer that option. Yes, sir.
You didn't mention tax incentives.
Yes, sir. First off, we are not tax professionals, so I advise everybody to reach out to your CPA, make sure you qualify, get everything dialed in that aspect. But yes, last August, the new administration did put into effect, it's called the IRA, which is basically a 30% tax, a federal tax credit that comes back on your income taxes. And that is set up for the next decade as of last summer. So we do work that into our initial proposals, speak with your CPA to make sure you qualify. From my understanding is that if you do not owe that much in taxes initially, that can be rolled over for several years. But absolutely check into that a little bit more. Definitely. Yes, miss.
What did you decide as far as tile roofs and having solar panels put on?
Thank you very much for bringing that up. We've been working with our distributors and we've got a couple guys throughout our company, Sam being one of them, our other electrician who have done work on tile roofs in the past. So we are taking on those projects now. It will be a different pricing format, I guess, because there is an additional time and labor for those specific projects. The tiles kind of slow us down a little bit, so there is an additional cost for installing on those projects. We did not want to shut out those projects right away, so yes, we are taking on those projects now. They're a little bit more time consuming from a proposal point of view, so I promise to get those quotes over to you as quickly as possible. From a technical standpoint, we are having some team members come out, specifically taking a look at the exact type of tile you have. The racking material and the hooks that we will use, they will accommodate several different types of materials, whether a flat concrete roof, an S-wave, or kind of a W-wave. We want to get specifics on exactly what type of roof you guys have. For customers, because those tiles are somewhat brittle, and when we're moving around on the roof, we are going to speak out to each customer to see if you have extra tiles available to get ahead of that as much as possible. We're going to be as careful throughout the entire workmanship installation as possible, but just so you're aware, they're much more brittle than the asphalt shingle roofs, of course, things like that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Given how long these last, so what happens if partway through you need to replace your roof?
Yes, sir. As Sam touched on that briefly, in Xcel territory, just so you're aware, the system is required to be hooked up to your homeowner's insurance. So when it's hooked up to their insurance, and I apologize, it's not necessary in all jurisdictions, but we highly recommend it as a starting point. Depending on the size of the array, your insurance policy, we can give you the final proposal. You can pass that along to your insurance agency to see if your premium increases at all. Some companies do not even require your premium to go up at all. So along those lines, when it's hooked up to your homeowner's insurance, we call it detach and reset. So essentially, you will file an insurance claim with your policyholder. We will come out, detach the panels, and store those on site for you. Let roofers follow up to conduct their work to put a new roof on for you. There is a curing period, so say it's the middle of July, we don't want to immediately get back up on the roof to damage any new shingles that were just installed. So typically about 10 to 14 days roughly, and also depending on our schedule, we'll come and follow up immediately as soon as we can to get you reinstalled and back up and running again.
Yeah, you pretty much answered it, but what I was asking is, let's say 10 years into it, your solar cells don't cover the entire roof. Let's say your roof now needs replacing. You're looking at it going, okay, I got an old roof.
Yep.
I got new solar cells. What's the process there for saying, okay, I want to keep the solar cells, but I want a new roof?
So the way that the industry will work is they don't want to patch together your roof. So we take off the full system for the detach, let them kind of with a blank slate repatch up the entire roof, and then we reinstall the system from there. They won't allow us to leave certain panels in areas, and the roofers won't work around it. We detach the entire system and then reset everything from there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then roughly what is that? What are you talking about? It's not a cost price.
So when you hook it up to your homeowner's insurance, you pay through an insurance claim, you pay your deductible for a new roof, and we can tie in the detach and reset of the panels, so it's no additional out-of-pocket expense. Yep. Yes, sir.
Would that same thing apply if you were like redesigning your roof or popping your top or getting a different roof topology?
That's usually tied into the detach and reset is for hail damage. If you're looking for a new roofing material, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Like potentially like popping the top, putting another floor on top of one's house.
So if you're looking to do something like that, that would require a little bit more work on our end because if you're changing the angle or the face of the panels, that would affect your output of your power. So we probably want to get to that. Some of that information, obviously we've already paid for some of the equipment, but you'd be looking to pay some labor at that point, depending on what you end up doing. So, yeah.
Along those lines as well, say you get your initial system installed, your family grows, you electrify your home with EVs, heat pumps, hot tubs, whatever the case may be. We can expand the array in the future as well to meet your consumption needs in the future. If we complete the initial installation from a starting point, we go through all inspections and get permission to operate, so you're producing energy. We can expand the array later on down the road. We try to help customers plan for the future as much as possible because once the initial stage is completed, we will have to go through permitting and engineering again with local jurisdictions for expansion projects as well. So when I put out the initial proposals, try to gauge your interest and plan for the future so we can size appropriately as best as possible.
Justin, given that and net metering, is there any reason you wouldn't just max your roof out? Because the expansion process is more expensive. You're just gonna pump more money into the system, and some systems don't even allow expansion. It sounds like yours does. So why wouldn't we just max our roof, given net metering, get to use that power anyway, and we just basically continue this?
Absolutely. So with each jurisdiction, as I mentioned, United Territory is limited at 120%. Xcel is up to 200%. Local jurisdictions are trying to anticipate more electrification for the future, which is why Xcel has jumped up to 200% to get ahead of that as much as
Is
possible.
that recent? 200?
I believe it was a year.
Last year.
Is
Yeah.
there potential United's gonna head that way?
Local, smaller jurisdictions, PVRA, United, Longmont, other jurisdictions are transitioning towards that. They are not into effect at this time. So if you folks have proof of purchase for an electric vehicle, a hot tub, things like that, if you have that proof of purchase, we can justify that to the local utility to go over that threshold. In Xcel territory, we shoot for 100%, but we can go up to 200. There's kind of a threshold where you don't want to oversize it too large because that starts affecting your return on investment. But if a couple of years down the road, you're anticipating so much higher consumption, we would suggest definitely adding more panels on down to make it much more cost effective for you over the next couple of years as it tends to balance out a little bit with future loads. Yep.
When you say 120 or 200%?
Yes.
That's of what? Present demand or present?
That's the last 12, sorry to cut you off, sir. That's based on the last 12 months of your utility consumption data. That's why I asked for that data right as a starting point to get the initial process started. So yes, it is. It's based on your actual consumption. That's how they take that into effect. Yep.
Do you ever have any situation where you have to structurally modify the truss system for the weight of this?
So typically there's no issues with the truss system. When we come out to do either the sales site visit or the technical site visit, we do ask for access to the attic. As we get up there, take a couple pictures and measurements. Each project is stamped by a structural engineer for wind speed, snow load, the weight of the panels, everything like that. So that is part of the building department approval. So that's all accounted for. Older homes that have just rafter system, we take into account for sizing, spacing of those rafters. As I mentioned, typically there's no issue with the truss system as there's several different points of support there. But yes, we have added additional support to previous projects as well. So we definitely cross that bridge. That is part of our pre-engineering to account for that before we get too far along.
Solar is not as heavy as your typical utilities, so there's.
But it has to be.
It does, but but typically your tract homes, most of your home constructors, there's a headroom in the structure for this kind of weight. We're not pushing the limits.
It's not often that engineers call it out and do some sistering or overlooking some more shows. It's rare, but it does happen.
So I have a question about the battery storage. So, battery storage for solar for my house, right? So how much battery storage would there be? And does Xcel Energy, because that's who my provider is, do they take the storage out of the battery during peak hours? How do they pull that out? And then how much battery storage is there? So for example, something went wrong and the electricity was gone. Do I still have power in my house because I have battery storage? And does Xcel Energy pay more during peak hours to take battery storage from my house if I have battery storage that's attached to it?
Absolutely. So
I don't know if that's an accurate way to.
no, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So we regularly install battery storage as well. There's a couple different ways to program it to offset peak rates, offset or add battery backup for power outages as well. Enphase has a great estimator tool, so depending on your needs, what you're trying to back up and for how long is how we size the battery capacity for your specific needs. They do have a new program where there's a one-time waiver that you sign off on where they can tap into your battery to utilize that energy throughout the community. We don't necessarily recommend it as you're giving away your access to your storage. And essentially with battery backup, you're trying to be as independent as possible from the utility grid. So you are your self-sufficient energy power system, basically. So they don't tap into your battery right away. You have to sign a release form on that aspect. But the way that we program the batteries as a starting point is to match the home's consumption, meaning you produce energy from your solar panels. It'll power loads in your home. First off, any excess energy beyond that is sent to your battery to make sure that is topped off and you're ready to go throughout the evening or a power outage if you're anticipating that. Excess energy beyond that is sent back to the utility grid. So when you export energy from your system is when you gain a credit through net metering. So depending in Xcel territory, they are transitioning to time of use rates. So they do have a tiered peak, mid-peak, and off-peak system. So when you send energy back to the utility grid, you will gain a credit, minus the tax from the utility company, of course, for exporting that energy, but it's automatically set up through a smart bidirectional meter, so you push and pull automatically. But with your monitoring system, Dan is great here. He can walk you through the battery components, how we configure your settings specific to what you're looking for battery backup and everything. You can set a threshold on how far that battery will discharge, everything like that. Does that help answer your question for you?
Or it gives me more confusion and more questions.
You're doing well, there's that.
You're welcome to come over and ask any of those technical questions, because there are a zillion ways to program those batteries to work in a way that benefits for your individual needs. Please come over and ask, we'll walk you through it.
Yeah, the short of it is the batteries can be customized to anybody's design. We've been doing batteries for the last 5+ years. And we're brand agnostic too. We've touched all various kinds, LG Chem, Solar Edge, Solar, you name it. There's some good products out there. We've just found that the products we're mostly mentioning today, like Enphase and REC, are kind of top tier that we've seen of recent day that we're really proud to offer. And the battery storage is an amazing way to feel self-sufficient. It's an amazing way to protect yourself from different rate structures. We're very familiar that time of use rates are coming to Xcel territory. It's been proven in Fort Collins, very on time of day rates. We're seeing significant uptake of battery storage because people are able to charge up their battery storage in the morning when the energy is worth a less rate. And so they can charge up their battery all day, and then during those peak hours in the evenings where the rates are about 3 or 4 times higher, they can just discharge as much battery storage that they stored up during the day and get more return for their solar than without the solar. And then it can charge up either back in the grid to support, X amount of backup, or you can retain, 20% backup, whatever you desire throughout the whole night, just to make sure if the lights flicker, you still have power until the morning when there's sunshine. So there's a lot of different ways to configure, and we're happy to engineer a battery system to your needs if you desire to go down that road.
Hey Justin, I'm sorry for being late. Have you already touched on the delays that's happening with Xcel hooking up after installation?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for highlighting that. Well, we shift you guys through the permitting and engineering process as quickly as we can. We do understand the concern about Xcel's territory with the extended timeline on the back end. Essentially, it depends on each jurisdiction for each neighborhood and everything. You may be subject to an additional review, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard throughout the news recently, but there's quite a bit of backlash coming on Xcel territory right now. So community members getting up and being vocal, trying to speed ahead the review process as much as possible, but that is an honest concern. We do everything we can to get you guys set up correctly, call in inspections, and then essentially it is in Xcel territory. The past several months, we've heard some customers be approved within 2 weeks. Other stories, it has been 2 months. Unfortunately, they are a larger company, so it is in their hands, and there's only so much that we can do as a contractor where they will respond to us, but it's community members like you that are vocal that really helps put some pressure on them and moves everything together quickly. They do have a new review process. I sent out an email to everybody to try to set your expectations and get ahead of this as well. It's a newer process to us as well, so we're trying to navigate this together. For each specific neighborhood, and it could vary between one street over where it's completely different territory essentially. Since they have such a large strain on their transmission lines, they are doing an additional review sometimes on the back end of the project to see if there are any potential upgrades to their power lines as well. We've had several customers go through this recently, as there's neighborhoods popping up, everybody's getting solar automatically installed on their homes, things like that. So they have been going through the initial review process. None of those customers have had any upgrades that are necessary by any means. It has added about a month to a month and a half on the back end of the project, unfortunately. Like I said, we have been in contact with Solar United Neighbors, Elevations Credit Union for lending, because that is coming into play as well. So we're trying to get ahead of this and help assist you as much as we possibly can.
We have two superheroes on our team, Andrew Kruger and Sean, that God bless them, they deal with bureaucracy day in, day out, trying to get permits and talk to Xcel every day in order to make sure everything's on a timely manner. So, yeah, we're here to support you.
Related to that, does that review happen before, what stage of the process does that review happen? Because if you know it's gonna be, there was a radio piece this morning on it, I think somebody was delayed like 6 months after they had their solar panels installed. Is there, if you know how long it's gonna take, you might wanna delay the installation of your solar panel, or does that not happen until after you're installed, that review takes place and that interconnect can be assessed at that point?
So we actually start working on the Xcel process immediately when we start your project.
I'm gonna take the mic.
Not quite loud enough. So we start right away with the Xcel process, and it is going on the whole time in the background. The additional review that we're talking about is happening at the very end, and it's because Xcel is taking so long. It does sometimes happen when you've already got your panels on the roof and you are waiting to get permission to operate. So it can be very frustrating. Like Justin was saying, there is an additional 30 days that sometimes happens, when you're already mostly through the process. And in addition to that, there's a $200 fee that Xcel charges. So we are working actively, and I work with Sean and Andrew to try and get that process done as quickly as possible. But, when they say, oh, we're gonna do this review and it takes 3 days, sometimes it takes a month. So, it can really extend out.
At what point do we start paying?
Xcel? Oh,
No, for the panels.
Oh.
Is that after everything's done or in the middle of this process?
So we're trying to navigate that as well. If you guys are going with a cash payment, we are structuring everything in a 30-30-30-10 split to help the project get off the ground for the first 30%, 30% upon permits and interconnection approval from the utility and building department. After we do the installation, then we call it the building department inspection. We collect 30% there. And then we are here to help out throughout the entire process and everything. So we do not close out the project by any means. We see everything all the way through, and then ongoing maintenance, anything like that you guys need beyond that. It can be structured a couple different ways for you. If you are going through a lending process, we have been in contact with Elevations Credit Union. We've been speaking with Jeffrey from the Renew Loan Program, that is a state-run program. So this is an honest concern, as customers don't want to double up on their loan payment while having an expensive system on their roof, while they still are subject to Xcel charges as well. So we're trying to navigate this. We have heard some representatives to delay the loan agreement signature to give us some time to get through permitting a little bit, and then sign the loan as we progress throughout the permitting process so that you don't double up on payments, essentially. I just spoke with a couple representatives from Elevations today, so I will get more information for you folks, and I can follow up with much more detail on that for you here soon.
So are there people paying double right now and waiting for Xcel?
Essentially, if there is a very extended timeline, yes, we have heard horror stories about that in the past, of them. Essentially, Xcel, we're at their mercy, so we have to check off each box and everything and go at their pace. They have been dragging their feet. I'm not sure if you've heard the news or anything, but there is a big backlash that's trying to get them to move quicker from what we've heard, and we've yet to it's yet to be seen, but they've hired on more engineers to streamline the review process because there is a big backlash coming towards them. But yes,
Shouldn't we be just paying for solar when the solar's actually up and running? Like, it doesn't make sense to pay for it if it's not going right.
absolutely.
So the job shouldn't really be done until it's actually connected and running your house.
Yes, we're trying to navigate that as well. That's the best that I can say because this is a new process for us too. The timeline hasn't been this long before. So usually when the loan process begins and everything, it works out pretty well for timing. So we're trying to navigate that to delay any loan payments for you guys, anything like that, to help minimize that time in between permission to operate, when your loan kicks in, things like that.
And I do wanna add that this is like 5%. This is not like a 50%, you're almost guaranteed for this to happen to you. This is a very low percentage of them having to do that additional review or taking an extended long time. It is 6 to 8 weeks though.
So, a couple different programs here, you got the new, you got the 12-3 Flex Solar loan. How does that work in with, it's gonna take 6 months to put this together, during that time, obviously you get payments. How does that align with the 12-3? Is, when it's put in, are you 6 months into the 12-3, or how does that work?
Yeah, the loan starts, I believe, upon completion or past inspection of the project. Unfortunately, the cost of finance couldn't attend today to answer those specific questions, so we'll definitely get back to you if you're interested in that loan package to ensure you have that correct information and timeline.
But the loan packages in general start when the installation is finished. Is that a fair statement? Because you mentioned 30-30, 30-30-30-10. If it's a loan, the loan is not gonna pay the 30-30-30-10, right? They'll pay at a certain point, or how does that work?
They pay, well, the loan starts when
I guess how do we pay, that's what I've heard, right?
Yeah.
So we can provide more documentation on that directly from the Renew representatives if you're going that route as well. Typically, I believe it's 90 to 120 days after building permit approval. So that's basically the second step in the entire process after we sign the contract. So there's a delayed start on that, so we can make some progress throughout permitting, minimize that timeline for you folks before you guys do have to start paying for loans or anything like that.
Justin, I've been giving a lot of thought to this because you and I talked a lot about this.
Yeah.
When we set up our project.
Yeah.
And my interest is in, of course, not paying double, right? Having this $25,000 system in your house that we can't use. However, I don't think it's fair for me to hold contractors who install the space, the equipment, responsible for that. And I think as a group, we are represented by Sun. And Sun is more of a political type entity to pressure Xcel. So rather than putting that on Sandbox, I'm looking at using a collective pressure in this group and make sure that if I have 6 months delay on my system, I'm gonna calculate my loss and I'm gonna tell Sun and we're gonna pressure Xcel, state legislator, city council, et cetera, because this is not new and it's just a matter of jumping in the pool to heat up the water.
Excellent. We really appreciate that support. As we had mentioned, we move and we progress as quickly as we can. There are certain things that are out of our hands, and community members such as yourselves really put the pressure on them to move everything along. So we really appreciate that support. We know that these contracts, there's a large amount of money in these systems and everything. So we want these up and producing for you guys as well. And throughout with the negative remarks in the media with Xcel and everything, customers are angry because they can't produce, turn the system on to start producing energy, and then essentially contractors cannot be paid to close out the project either. So thank you for bringing up that point. We really appreciate the support, as we are here to help you guys, but this is negative coming back on us as well. So thank you very much.
So the savings that you get by having solar eventually pay for the system, and about how long do you guys think that it takes to do that if and when it does?
So that, it depends on jurisdiction, orientation of the roof, production points, everything like that. Typically, we're seeing anywhere between 10 and 12 years for a return on investment, and break-even points, basically. Yes, sir.
So, can you talk a little bit about timing of the EV charger? If I want to go out and get a hybrid car today, and I can't get this installed for another 6 months, how do I coordinate that and make sure the equipment is compatible and all that stuff?
I mean, if you're gonna go buy an EV vehicle tomorrow, obviously they're gonna give you a little 110 charger. Depending on your site visit, and you're like, oh man, I wanna get this EV charger done right away, they can probably work that in as a separate entity, and we can just schedule that EV charger installation ahead of time.
And we purchase that equipment through you then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great point, and along those lines, we know with the timeline, things do change, there are new loads coming in, you guys are adjusting, future appliances and everything like that. Please coordinate with us, so that we can accommodate that and plan accordingly from an engineering point of view, as we do permit everything. So once we submit paperwork, that is set in as we sold the system right there. If things do change in the meantime, we want to make sure that we are aware of it and the utility is as well. We have had customers in the past that have installed generators directly in front of their breaker panel, AC units, everything like that, to where it does alter our course of action, our scope of work, and then especially inspections and everything like that on the back end, because it is a surprise to us as well. So if you guys can coordinate with us, let us know if anything changes, we can plan accordingly and take care of that as quickly as possible to help streamline everything, so it doesn't delay anything on the backside of the project.
A planned EV charger can help you or hurt you on paperwork. So
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
A future planned EV charger can help you or hurt you on paperwork depending on what you're trying to do. So if the 200% limit from the utility, you can use your planned EV charger to justify a larger system during the planning phase. If you have the documentation, I guess it's just proof of purchase is the only way to do that. But also, if we come into a situation where we need to derate your main or certain steps with your electrical system, having that load on there on the paperwork can make it so that the load calculation will not work if we have a problem trying to make those adjustments to the panel. So definitely just inform him, and once we know in which direction we're needing to go on that electrical stuff, you can kind of decide whether you want to move on that before solar installation or just think about it as an accessory afterward.
And then along those lines, trying to take care of the engineering at the forefront, plan accordingly of what is in place. We can absolutely adjust and give you a full breakdown and analysis of what to expect later on. As Sam mentioned, as new larger loads come in, whether it's an EV charger or a hot tub, that's a larger load. So it could put you over that threshold where essentially you could need a panel upgrade that wasn't needed before. So we do want to account for that, so there's no surprises later on down the road.
That makes sense, thank you.
You guys have had other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about the consumption monitoring option and then how that would work with the battery or without?
Consumption monitoring is going to track the usage of your house, depending on your panel setup. We really want to make sure we have access to the feeders coming in. It'll just track kind of what your house is using. Now, if you have a battery installed, those CPs basically are going to coordinate within the system and trigger the battery to say, hey, I need to produce a little extra power to offset whatever you're using at the time. There is a lot of configuration that goes into how you can best maximize that. But anytime we do a battery backup type of setup, we're always going to have consumption CPs. You're always going to see that. If you have just solar and your panel's a good fit for it, we'll put consumption CTs in as well, so you can see what your solar is producing, as well as what your house is using. You can kind of see how all those numbers play.
And then how will that also give us an idea of what is going to Xcel?
It will show you what your
Xcel is. giving us the.
And yeah, so it's gonna give you a number of what you're exporting back to the grid. But those, you really have to be able to compare those numbers to your bill, depending on where your CTs are located, if they're at your feeder, if it's a sub-panel, they're getting all the loads, if they're not getting all the loads. It's really site-specific on how your house is set up. So that's something that we would address, after we see the site visit and get photos of the house.
Okay. So do you recommend getting that?
I do,
For
yeah.
$200?
It's a nice thing to have. Sometimes some electrical panels, especially older ones, they are much more difficult to put those CGs in a way that will give you an accurate reading. But when we can do it, it really works out nice. You can see how the solar is offsetting your load, when it's really peaking, when you're using a lot of power, and that can help you just manage your electricity rates in a really nice way.
So the electricity goes from the panel through the box. Is there a way to disconnect from that and just use the solar?
Not unless you have battery backup or an ATS switch. We can't use solar when the grid is down. For those who don't know, the grid goes down and you just have solar panels on your roof. The solar is going to shut off as well. That's a safety feature.
Right.
Unless you have a way to isolate your house from the grid, that solar is always going to drop off until the power comes out.
So to isolate it, I either need a battery or I need
You need a battery and a transfer switch, something that isolates you from the grid. So that transfer switch is going to switch you over to your own little microgrid where the solar and the batteries can kind of support your loads in that house.
Right.
Once power comes back on, it'll automatically switch back over.
Right, so you had two options. So one is the battery. What was the other one?
There's a different product out there that for sunlight backup, I don't really recommend that. It's not going to power more than 2 or 3 loads in your house, and you're spending a lot of money for it.
For sunlight backup.
Sunlight backup.
So, okay, I got you.
So what Dan's referring to is sunlight backup. Basically, as the sun is out and shining, powering the loads, producing from the panels, of course. There's several other components that you need in that wiring configuration in order. So if the grid goes down, you'll still have power to your home. As Dan mentioned, it can only power smaller loads. You need an auto transfer switch, so that safety switch in there. You need a load controller. There's several different components, and that still does not give you any battery backup. Essentially, if it's a cloudy day or if there's a large cloud that comes over, it could take your system down as well, even if you do have those components. It's a newer technology from Enphase. I feel like this is the first generation. There are some kinks to work out of the plan. It's an awesome idea, but don't highly recommend it by any means at this point. Yes, sir.
What should we expect post-installation, post-hookup in terms of monthly maintenance, annual maintenance, service that you guys provide?
These are solid state systems. The idea of them, and well over 90% of the time, the function of them is you turn it on one time and just watch your bill go down. That's the deal. Now, if you have a battery system, there's there's programming, there's interacting with it. There's things like, there's features like Storm Guard, which is, watches the weather service and it'll switch it over to backup. If you're using your battery normally in money saving mode, it'll switch over to where it's just holding for an emergency in response to an extreme weather event coming down. But yeah, realistically, these systems are just fire and forget, just enjoy them. We do warranty service, of course, and there are, there's firmware glitches and things like this, and there are a few, we catch products coming bad out of the box from time to time. So I've gone out on a couple this year of just replacing a microinverter that when you fired it up, it didn't come online, and we swapped it out with a new one on warranty in the first week there. But yeah, really your expectation is just let it run.
So the firmware updates, do you guys do that over online, automatically from your office to our house, or what?
For the Enphase systems, it is automated entirely through their monitoring system. So these systems are hooked up to the web-based monitoring, They also receive their firmware updates through there, so that is entirely automated.
So I don't have to worry.
Nope.
So when we commission a system at your house, we're gonna connect it to your Wi-Fi, which is hopefully close. If not, we'll typically put in a range extender to get it there. That's gonna allow that to basically communicate to the in-phase cloud and then communicate to your application. That's gonna push all those updates automatically. That said, firmware and software, it's magic in space. Sometimes it doesn't go through, sometimes it gets stuck. It's a standard, turn it off, turn it back on again, to fix that, so.
And in initial installation, it's not uncommon for us to have to do a firmware upgrade or a manual reset, that sort of thing in your first week. But
Along those same lines of maintenance, do you ever recommend cleaning the solar panels? Do you really dirty or dusty or?
yeah, you have the option, okay, so when the Germans brought this stuff in, their belief was that rainfall would completely take care of it on the cleaning. And you can go that route and it's fine. You lose a couple of percent unless you're right on a dirt road or something like that where you have a real dust problem. You know, guys that have like a horse ranch or something like that, they gotta clean them themselves. Or you know, there's people you can bring out to clean them too. And you can go complicated with squeegees and DI water if you want to, but the garden hose does it fine. Just don't do it on a smoking hot 110-degree day. My personal recommendation is once a year going into summer. And that's my preference on it because that's when your production is most critical. And so you go through the summer with a nice day in the summer or the evening.
Just in the morning,
Yeah,
typically.
If I could chime in.
Yeah.
Pollen here, you know, so that's that good spring into summertime, it's a really good idea to give your panel a nice down.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like snow, sometimes will come sliding off the solar panels. You recommend snow guard, you gotta install snow guard.
Yeah, that's an option. You work it out in the design if you want to do that.
Depends on where your panels are. If they're sitting right over the entrance to your house, it's really steep roof. Maybe don't want to clean that off, that's surprising. But if they're not anywhere, sometimes that snow guard will actually stack the snow on the panels and prevent them from producing stuff. Really kind of look at where we lay out. The site audit guys will catch that a lot too. It's also something that can be installed down the road, so if you get up there, like, oh man, this snow is like really piling on my patio, I hate this. You can give us a call, we can come out with that snow guard on afterwards. That doesn't require permitting or anything like that.
The critter guard, does that come standard?
Yes, sir. That's automatically installed with all of our residential systems. Yes. For you guys that don't know, Critter Guard is basically a mesh lining that goes around the base of the array to keep out any squirrels, birds, debris like that. That's automatically installed in all of our systems. Does anybody? Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit more about batteries. So batteries are hard to get, the metals are hard to come by, and then if you can get one, they're expensive. And then the life cycle is 5 to maybe 20 years, probably not gonna get that, and that's probably not including degradation. So what are you seeing on the battery front? Is it worth doing? You're only gonna get 5 years, you're never gonna get an ROI, I guess you get peace of mind. But there's also a lot of innovation coming around the battery angle. Things are gonna get a lot better pretty soon, so does it make sense to just hold off for the?
I think it really depends a little bit on your very specific situation. If you have buried power, you might see one outage a year. That is a lot of money to put in for just that. If your solar is 100% offsetting your electric bill, then really you just spend a lot of money on these batteries for what to put back on a little more onto the grid during tiered rates. That being said, the technology, at least right now, the Enphase products, it's tried and true, works really nice.
That 5 is a low number. Or a low number.
Yeah.
So have you had customers have them beyond 5 years and they still have
The 10Ts I believe have a 10,000 cycle. So if you're cycling them once a day, there's some math there. But I think it's been 10 years. Yes. Math.
So essentially, we always present the battery option right from the very beginning. As Dan mentioned, it's very site-specific on what you need out of this system. I always present it and ask the customer, like, how long does your power go out? How often does it go out? A lot of the projects that we install for batteries are up in Red Feather Lakes, Livermore, essentially more up in the mountains where they have overhead lines where the power lines go out quite a bit more often. Us being in Fort Collins, everything is buried, so it's more on a cost savings perspective in that point rather than a battery backup aspect. Just so you folks are aware, the Enphase microinverters, the combiner box, all of those components will be battery ready to begin with, so we can integrate battery backup at a later time. It may be additional engineering and everything to make sure it can fit with the auto transfer switch, with your wiring configuration, with breaker panel, everything like that. But essentially, we can expand later on down the road and take a look at battery backup for you. With battery pricing, beautiful thing about the new IRA, as well as the old tax incentive as well. If the battery is charged directly by your solar panels, when we pair it together with the solar installation, it then does qualify for the 30% federal credit as well, to help take away quite a bit of that sting for pricing.
So the reason I'm asking is we do a dual EV, we don't have gas engines anymore. And so if there were a significant outage, it'd be a matter of time before we're stopped, unless hopefully a supercharger somewhere, some adventure network is still up. So I was just wondering, does it make sense to do a battery for a worst case scenario? I do like to hear that it's rolled into the credit now, so maybe that would be an option.
Depending on the power needs of those EVs, you would need a pretty sizable battery bank to ramp that up to actually charge those. So if you're probably familiar, those car batteries probably hold way more power than a standard 10 kilowatt hour battery bank. We'd have to stack those and pair those because those are more or less 20 amp outputs per 10T. So if we stack two of those, that's 40 amps. But that might just charge one car.
And there's a different application.
Yeah.
If he's got any sort of battery setup and a giant, there's another approach to that though. The capacity of batteries doesn't have to be the limitation for that application you're talking about, because you could go with a limited battery setup that would enable your solar to run in that power outage, and then your big old solar system is what's charging up your cars, and the battery is in that application just there to make sure that it's still functional in that power outage. So the capacity doesn't have to cut that plant.
One other thing is, if I understand right, batteries go inside the walls, so, and there's a space requirement, not only for the installation, but for space around the battery for maintenance, right? So how much space do you have to sort of allocate for that?
It's not in the wall, but there's a bunch of space.
The batteries are, I think, the 10Ts are 56 inches long. You want a space about the size of this table. This is a great workspace for a battery. They stick out the wall probably about 12 to 18 inches. You can still park your car beside that. They don't radiate a lot of heat. They have a plastic cover on top of them. You aren't going to hear them. Lining fans and things like that. But as any electrical installation, they typically want 3 feet of available space to service them in the event that they need to be serviced. So we're not putting them in crawl spaces.
Basement?
We can put them in some basements. Typically, if it's finished, we really have to look at where it's at in that finishing. We have to go through some communications.
It's strongly preferred to have the battery close to the electrical service panel.
Yeah.
I just don't have room. I literally don't.
So we put them in basements, plenty of time to put in utility rooms, just requires a little bit extra work to make sure they communicate with everything and play nice together. You know, they all typically are communicating on the Zigbee type setup. So if there's a long space, we need to put range extenders and things like that in there. So they're play nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Justin, earlier you said that if you buy batteries at the time you do the install, the solar install, then you can get the tax deduction. When you phrase that, made me think that if you do batteries later, it doesn't qualify.
Sorry if that was confusing. If you have the batteries tied into the wiring configuration where they're being directly charged by the solar array, specifically whether you install the batteries as a combination at the time of original install, or if you bring them on at a later time, it could still potentially qualify for that 30% federal incentive as the rebate for you. Yeah.
If it's bought in the same year.
Correct. There is a time.
Yeah, so if you're not gonna get a battery initially that's fine, but you have to, if you want the 30% off the battery, you're gonna have to buy it in the same year.
Yes. Another reason why to talk to your CPA, make sure everything qualifies for tax purposes, but yes, there is a limitation on timing. So you can expand later on down the road, but there's a limitation for qualifying for that incentive, essentially. Yes, thank you, sir. Yes.
Justin, for those of us who have received initial estimates from
Yes.
you, what do we expect next step?
So next step is to schedule a site visit. If you review the initial proposal, you're good to go on the initial sizing and you'd like to move forward with a site visit, either I or one of our team members will come out. We're trying to get ahead for a sales site visit to get more information along these lines in front of you. And then as I get busier, we're gonna employ our team members to come out to do a technical site visit to take pictures and measurements that will definitely help streamline my process. But essentially the next step down the road is the on-site visit. We'll walk the property with you. We'll take pictures and measurements of your electrical or structural aspects, dial in all the details of what you folks are looking for out of the project, and come up with a defined scope of work to proceed from there.
So I have to contact you then?
If you'd like to reach out, yes, and with the amount of customers in the community, of course, I'm trying to knock out these site visits as quickly as possible. But yes, if you'd like to reach out and say, hey, Justin, I'm available next Tuesday, we'll get you on the schedule. We'll get answers for you guys right away. Do the engineering at the forefront and then go from there. Yes, sir.
Time for one last question.
So using this co-op, how much like a percentage can we expect we would be saving as if we were, not using the co-op?
So as a group percentage, a group discount, we have significantly decreased our pricing in general. It depends on the size of the array and everything, but essentially for general quotes, we're looking at $3.05 per watt for this co-op pricing. Typically, depending on the situation, we could be anywhere between $3.40 and $3.60. Depends on what kind of add-ons you guys want. But essentially, you guys grouping together, we can offer a group discount to streamline permitting, installation process. We're going to be in the area for the next several months cranking these out for you, where we can streamline everything and offer quite a significant discount. It could add up, depending on situation, it could add up several $1,000s per project. Absolutely. Yeah.
Given that response, is there a deadline to play ball? Like, hey, you gotta get in the game by this date, or?
Thank you for bringing that up. So with the co-op timeline that we're looking at, we're trying to conduct site visits. All those to be completed by mid-April, and for our deadline for contract signing, that is at mid-May. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of as many people as possible to streamline this process, get answers for you guys so that we don't delay and get into crunch time later on. The initial quotes that have gone out have come in waves as I conduct site visits, get initial proposals out and everything. But as we start signing up customers and everything, I will begin following up with customers to check in, say, hey, do you have any questions? Would you like to schedule a site visit and keep everything moving along? But roughly mid-May is our deadline for contract signing. Yep. Want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. You guys have all had great questions. We really appreciate it. We're excited to get this project started for you guys and provide more information. As I mentioned, this is an initial informational piece right here, but I will meet individually with each of you customers to dial everything in, make sure we hit for your needs for batteries, EVs, everything like that, and do it customization for each specific project, get some more information for you guys. Being the only salesman, I do ask for some patience as I do get initial proposals out, but I hope you know we're full steam ahead on this entire project to get in front of each and every one of you as quickly as we possibly can.
We're going to hang around for answer your individual questions if you have any. Thanks to Melissa from REC to represent the solar panels. I'll ask her questions, and thanks for coming tonight. We're excited to be a part of the community.